The official star charts classified Zelo 7 as a Class 0 world. No life, no atmosphere, no water, just a barren rock, perpetually bathed in the pale light of a distant twin star system. For a galactic traveler, it was a place of elegant, lifeless simplicity. For Alex, a human biologist whose advanced ship had just met its final fiery end on its surface, it was an alien tomb. His survival suit, a marvel of Terran engineering, was functional. But his communicator was a useless piece of scrap metal. The ship's emergency beacon was silent. He was alone, marooned on a planet that, by all scientific metrics, should have no reason for existence. His training was not in combat or engineering. It was in the primitive art of Terran paleobotany and zoology. In a galaxy where species were catalogued by their DNA and environments were simulated in a nanosecond, Alex's skills were considered an academic curiosity, relics of a time when scientists had to rely on their senses, not their scanners. On the third cycle since the crash, his suit's recycling system blinked a low-power warning. He needed water. The main survival manual, a data crystal in his suit, confirmed what the star charts said. A Class 0 world has no liquid water. The surface was a sea of cracked, rust-colored rock, with no sign of even a trace of moisture. But Alex, a man trained to see what others missed, ignored the data crystal. He was a student of the organic, a master of the imperfect. He knew that life, even in the most hostile environments, leaves a trail. He scanned the ground, not with a sensor, but with his eyes. He wasn't looking for a water source. He was looking for a sign of a water source. His search was long and grueling, his energy reserves dwindling with every step. He passed over 1,000,000 identical, lifeless rocks. But then, he saw it, in the deep shadow of a rock formation, where the twin suns couldn't reach. A single, microscopic layer of green shimmered. It wasn't a plant. It was a lithic lichen, a microscopic life form that fed on the minerals in the rock itself. A species that, according to galactic databases, should not exist on a Class 0 world. Alex knelt down, his heart pounding with a mix of terror and triumph. This tiny patch of life, no bigger than his thumbnail, was his lifeline. It meant the galactic scans were wrong. It meant that life, however simple, could exist here. And where there was life, there was a chance for a water cycle. He followed the faint trail of lichens, a microscopic breadcrumb trail across the otherwise dead planet. The trail led him to what his sensors classified as a dry riverbed, a deep winding scar in the planet's surface. His suit's moisture sensor read 0.00%. The data crystal screamed at him to turn back, but Alex saw something else. The cracks in the riverbed were not random. They were forming a specific pattern, a hexagonal network that a Terran desert rock would form after being baked for weeks in the sun. This pattern, to him, meant that water had been here recently, and where water had been, a trace of it could still remain. Ignoring the screaming warnings of his suit, Alex knelt down at a cluster of cracks and began to dig. The data crystal in Alex's suit screamed a final warning. It had detected no moisture. It had registered no organic life. It told him, in a cold, synthesized voice, that his efforts were futile. But Alex ignored it. He was a human, a being whose ancestors had learned to read the Earth itself, not just the data it produced. He was a master of the imperfect, the observer of the unseen. He dug for a long, grueling cycle, his hands aching in the heavy survival gloves. The fine rust-colored soil turned to dust with every scoop. Just as he was about to give up, his fingers brushed against a strange, rubbery mass. It wasn't rock. It was a network of fibrous fungi, an extremophile that, according to his internal Terran biodatabase, had no known analog in the galaxy. The galactic scanners would have passed over it, dismissing it as a form of crystallized mineral, but Alex knew better. He knew this fungus, with its strange web-like structure, was a master moisture absorber. He squeezed a handful of the rubbery mass, and a small, precious trickle of fluid seeped out. It was murky and tasted faintly of rust and dust. But it was water, it was life. With his most critical need met, Alex's mind turned to the next. He needed a stable food source. The galactic manuals stated that on a Class 0 world, there would be no macro-organic life. But Alex knew that where there was one life form, there were often more. He carefully followed the fungal network, searching for a sign of an organism that might feed on it. After another grueling search, he found it tucked within the deepest part of the fungal network. He found a small, segmented worm-like creature. It was pale, blind, and looked entirely unappetizing, but it was there. His Terran biodatabase confirmed it was a perfect protein source, a primitive creature that had evolved in this harsh, hidden ecosystem. An alien explorer relying on their advanced scanners for a food source would have starved. They would have searched for something large, something with a detectable biosignature. But Alex, a student of the small and unseen, had found a thriving micro-ecosystem. He used his suit's basic heating element to purify a handful of the worms, and the resulting meal was tasteless, but it was calories. It was survival. Now that his immediate needs were met, Alex's mind turned to shelter. The surface was a series of open plains, a silent wind whistling through the canyons. He needed a place to rest, to recharge his suit, and to protect himself from the planet's twin suns. He scanned the distant rock formations, not with his suit's thermal sensor, but with his eyes. He saw the subtle but undeniable signs of planetary erosion. He saw the way the wind had carved a series of caves into the side of a canyon. The suit's geology sensors would have dismissed them as unstable, as a series of random wind-carved holes. But Alex knew the telltale signs of a stable rock formation. The way the sediment had settled, the way the wind had carved the mouth of the cave. He found a cave that had been perfectly carved into the side of a canyon, its mouth protected from the constant winds. He was no longer a castaway, he was a survivor. He had taken a Class 0 world, a planet that was supposed to be a tomb, and found a home. Weeks turned into a series of cyclical routines. Alex had mastered his new reality. He had a home in the canyon, a source of water from the fibrous fungi, and a steady supply of protein from the segmented worms. His survival suit, powered by a solar array he had jury-rigged, was a testament to his resourcefulness. He was no longer just a castaway. He was an expert in the flora and fauna of a world that, according to all galactic data, did not have any. But as his immediate needs were met, his biologist's mind turned to observation. He began to explore the canyon, mapping its subtle wind currents, its temperature fluctuations, and the behavior of the tiny life forms he had discovered. It was during one of these explorations that he saw it. In the distance, a large, jagged rock, roughly the size of a small shuttle pod, was moving slowly. Alex's suit sensors screamed in protest. The data streams registered it as a seismic event, a form of tectonic drift, but Alex knew better. His eyes, trained to spot the subtleties of Terran geology and biology, saw the telltale signs of organic movement. It was not a rock. It was a living creature. It was an immense slow-moving organism that fed on the mineral deposits of the canyon walls. The galactic scanners, which were designed to detect biosignatures, would have missed it entirely. Its cellular structure was so dense, so mineralized, that it would have been classified as an inorganic geological formation. But Alex, with his primitive knowledge of biology, saw the way it shifted, the way its surface radiated a low heat, and the telltale signs of a waste product. It was a rock-eater, a living creature that was the ultimate expression of this planet's life. To get a closer look, Alex needed a tool. His survival suit was ill-equipped for capturing a large life-form, so he decided to rely on his most primitive weapon, knowledge. He found a long, flexible strand of the fibrous fungi he had discovered earlier. It was strong, durable, and an excellent conductor of heat. He then used his suit's heating element to mold a small, obsidian-like rock into a sharp, pointed knife. With these crude tools, he began to craft a trap. It was a rudimentary, simple design, something a Terran ancestor from the Bronze Age might have conceived. A simple snare with a release mechanism, a trap that would have been laughed at by any other member of the Galactic Institute. The rock-eater moved slowly, with the patient, inexorable pace of a planet itself. Alex, using his knowledge of animal behavior, placed the snare at the base of a mineral-rich rock formation where the creature would undoubtedly feed. He was not just setting a trap, he was having a conversation with the planet itself. He was speaking a language of instinct and observation that his advanced civilization had long forgotten. As the immense creature lumbered toward the trap, its mineralized body scraping against the canyon floor, Alex felt a strange sense of victory. The creature's existence was a contradiction to everything he had been taught about this planet. It was a testament to the fact that even in the most barren places, life, however strange, would find a way. The rock-eater, a massive mineral-encrusted beast of a life form, lumbered toward Alex's trap. It moved with the patience of a geological process, its immense body scraping against the canyon floor. Alex, a tiny figure in the shadow of the creature, held his breath. His knowledge was a gamble, a belief that even on this alien world, a creature would behave with a certain predictable, organic logic. The creature's movements were slow but powerful. It stepped into the snare, its heavy body activating the rudimentary release mechanism. With a series of clicks and soft scraping sounds, The fibrous cords he had created from the fungi tightened around the creature's immense mineralized form. It wasn't designed to hold it, only to slow it down and confuse it. The creature paused, its internal biosystems likely rerouting energy to deal with the illogical entanglement. At that exact moment, a small silver drone from a passing galactic survey vessel, the Cosmos Vexilla, picked up a thermal anomaly. Its advanced scanners registered a single, illogical heat signature, lone human on a planet classified as barren. It descended its primary objective to log the anomaly and report on the human's inevitable demise. What it saw, however, was something its programming could not comprehend. Log entry: Surveyor drone 7734. Location: Xylos 7. Time: 13:45. Mission: Anomalous lifeform analysis. Subject Terran confirmed. Subject Terran is in a state of primitive survival, lacking all advanced technology. Primary objective remains unchanged. Observe final moments and record data for future analysis. Initial observation: the Terran has engaged a mobile geological formation in a capture scenario. The Terran's tools are unsophisticated, composed of organic filaments and sharpened stone. The trap's design defies all known principles of engineering and is not capable of withstanding the object's mass. Unforeseen data: the geological formation has ceased movement. The Terran's crude tool is inexplicably holding. My probability algorithms are recalculating. The Terran's movements are erratic with no logical pattern. He is not applying a precise force. He is using a series of subtle, tactile movements, which I am unable to classify. The Terran has not captured the formation with force. He has convinced it to stop. He is now interacting with it, touching the minerals on its surface. He appears to be analyzing the waste product. The data from my onboard scanners is an anomaly. The waste product, a mineral slurry, contains a complex and nutrient-rich profile. It should not be a viable food source. Yet the Terran is ingesting it. Conclusion: the Terran is not a logical biological entity. His methods are chaotic and illogical, yet they are inexplicably effective. He is a master of his primitive science, a being who understands a level of existence beyond our data-driven logic. He is not a castaway. He is a predator, a ghost in the machine, a being who thrives on a world classified as uninhabitable. The drone, unable to process the bewildering data, eventually ascended back to the Cosmos Vexilla, its log filled with a series of entries that would be deemed impossible. Meanwhile, Alex, oblivious to the alien observer, had just secured a food source that would allow him to survive for weeks. He had not just survived the planet, he had domesticated it. The lecture hall was quiet, but the silence was no longer born of boredom. It was born of a deep, unsettling fear. The alien students had just witnessed a species that celebrated its flaws, that felt pain as a vital necessity, and that healed with a brutal, messy efficiency that defied all logic. They now understood that Terran biology was not a puzzle to be solved, but a terrifying paradox to be witnessed. The professor, their wise elder, sensed their unease. He knew he had to drive the lesson home. The final absurdity of Terran biology, he explained, was the process of aging. He projected a new set of holograms, this time showing the slow, inexorable process of a Terran's life. He showed how the fast, messy, and illogical healing processes accumulated over decades. Each wound that healed, each patch of fibrous tissue, each wrinkle from a smile, each line from a frown, they all left a permanent mark. To the Vexillans, a species that could achieve biological perfection with time and care, this was the ultimate horror. Their bodies could remain pristine, forever locked in a state of flawless, elegant youth. The Terrans, however, were a species that visibly wore their entire life on their bodies. Their skin wrinkled, their hair lost its color, and their very posture seemed to change with the burden of time. To the Vexillans, it was a biological failure. It was a visible record of every single imperfection, every single chaotic repair, every single scar. It was a public display of the body's slow, inevitable surrender. But once again, the professor introduced the confounding Terran perspective. He showed recorded Terran data files where the elderly were not treated as biological failures, but as revered elders. They were sought for their wisdom and their experience. A Terran would look at their own wrinkled hand, not with disgust, but with a strange, illogical sense of pride. The wrinkles were a testament to a life well lived. The gray hair was a sign of endurance. Their biology is a direct result of their history. Class. The professor's voice hummed with a new, profound reverence. Their planet, Terrans call it Earth, is a brutal, chaotic place. It is a world of constant physical stress, a species without elegant, slow and flawless healing would have perished within a few generations. Their species needed a biology that could be reckless. It needed a biology that could patch itself up with whatever was available and keep fighting. Their super-fast regeneration is not a gift. It is a brutal necessity born of a world of pain and chaos. Cathar's mind snapped into focus. He understood. His species' perfect bodies were a luxury. They had evolved in a world of serenity, where time was not a threat, and injuries were rare. Their slow, elegant healing was a testament to a peaceful, orderly existence. The Terrans, however, had evolved in a world of constant struggle. Their chaotic, messy, and surprisingly fast regeneration was the most elegant solution for their insane, beautiful world. The professor let his final lesson hang in the air, a silent truth that shattered the foundations of the students' beliefs. They had always been taught that biological perfection was the ultimate goal. The Terrans had shown them that survival, in all its messy, illogical chaos, was a greater testament to a species' success. Their bodies were a record of a life lived, a physical history etched in bone and tissue. Class dismissed. The professor's voice hummed a final, profound note. You have all learned the theoretical principles of bioscience, but today, you have learned the most important lesson of all. True biological genius is not about flawless design. It is about a system's ability to adapt and endure. As the students filed out, their forms flickering with the intellectual turmoil of their new reality, Cathar remained behind. His mind was still processing the images of the Terrans' wrinkled hands, the faded scars on their limbs, the crow's feet around their eyes, which one a symbol of a life lived. He looked down at his own 4 flawless hands, their crystalline structure pristine and untouched. For the first time in his life, he didn't see a symbol of perfection. He saw a sign of biological weakness, a body that had never truly been tested, that had never known the brutal, beautiful art of survival. The professor glided over to him, his light dimming with a knowing grace. The Terrans do not just heal Cathar, they remember. Every scar, every wrinkle, every imperfection is a story. Their bodies are living histories, testaments to their resilience. That is an elegance far beyond our flawless biological design. The professor then gave Cathar a final, symbolic assignment. He projected a single 3D image of an elderly Terran. The man's face was a roadmap of wrinkles, his hands were gnarled with age, and a thin white scar ran down his arm, a faint, ancient memory of a childhood injury. Your final assignment is to study this Terran, the professor said. Analyze his form not for its flaws, but for its triumphs. Look at his scars not as a failure of his body, but as a success of his spirit. Consider his wrinkles not as a sign of decay, but as a living record of a life well lived. Cathar took the assignment. He spent the next cycle in the empty lecture hall, the image of the Terran man his only companion. He magnified the scar, analyzed the wrinkles, and studied the subtle imperfections. He was no longer looking for a logical explanation. He was looking for the story. He had spent his entire life studying the perfection of the galaxy's species. But now he was studying something far more profound. The glorious, messy, and absurdly beautiful chaos of a species that didn't just survive, it lived. The absurdity of Terran regeneration was no longer absurd. It was the most elegant form of biological genius he had ever seen. The humans were not a species to be pitied. They were a species to be revered for their magnificent, living, and chaotic resilience.